All right. Good everyone. Welcome again to biology class with Mr. Francis. I believe you're well. All right. Today we'll be looking at a very interesting topic, uh, and it's titled ecological succession, and we'll be looking at overcrowding. So, looking at ecological succession and overcrowding. So, what I'm going to discuss in this topic, let's look at the outline for this topic. First, we're looking at meaning of ecological succession. We're looking at climax community. We also discuss about general characteristics of ecological succession. We're looking at types of succession. Also, we're looking at factors that result in bare surface and barren land, or barren areas rather. Also, we're looking at outcome of succession. Then we're looking at major community in the plant succession. So these are what we'll be looking at in ecological succession, while in overcrowding, we'll be looking at the meaning of overcrowding. We'll be looking at factors that affect overcrowding. We'll also be discussing about effects of overcrowding. Number 4, we're talking about adaptation to avoid overcrowding. We'll also look at meaning of food shortage, its causes, and its effects. So these are all what we're discussing right in this class today. So if you're ready, let's dive in together. Let's look at the meaning of ecological succession. What is the meaning of ecological succession? Now, this is the orderly change in the inhabitants of an area over a period of time, or over time. Or we can also define it this way, that it is defined as a step-by-step, orderly and gradual replacement of communities of organisms that leads to a stable or climax community. So it's a gradual replacement of communities, all right, of organisms, either plant or animal, that leads to a stable or climax community. To explain that is that we can say it's the change or replacement of different species of plants and animal community in a given area over a period of time until climax is reached, or until climax or stable community is reached. And ecological succession usually starts in a newly formed land, open land or barren land, or it is formed in abandoned land. So you can think of it this way, that let's say for example now there's a piece of land and nobody's there. Maybe the piece of land is just there or just abandoned there. A time will come whereby you see grass growing on that piece of land which is abandoned. Then if you give it some time again, you observe that by the time you come back, that place will be filled with various kind of plants, or some of you call it bushes. And if you leave that for long, you start seeing trees growing there on that same piece of land that is abandoned over a period of time. And the time will come, that place will become bush, or it become um filled with what? Vegetation. So that's gradual changes from a barren land into various stages like that is what we refer to as what? Ecological succession, whereby the empty land or the abandoned land is being covered by vegetation of different sorts until you get to a point whereby the vegetation does not change to or fro again. It's what we refer to as what? Ecological succession. Let's look at climax community. Now, climax community is established when a stable or unchanged community, in this case plants, is established. What will mean the word climax? It means when that particular piece of land has been covered by vegetation, a time will come whereby the plants that are there do not change again. The same plants that you see this year, that's the same plants you will see next year. you don't see any new one again, which means at that particular stage, we say that's um ecological place there has reached what we call what climax. That community has reached what we call climax, or it has reached a level of what stability, where you don't experience new growth again, you don't experience new plants there again. You just stable because you're seeing the same plants year in, year out. So hence vegetation reach its highest um development, and the same species of plants and animals reoccur from year to year. This is what we mean by what climax community, or you call it what stable community. Let's move on. Let's look at general characteristics of ecological succession. Number one, the plants form pioneer organism, being the producers. The plants form pioneer organisms, being the producer. Now, the word pioneer simply means the first set of plants that first of all, germinates on that land. Those little grasses, first as was pioneer. So it's from those little grasses that we start having those various kind of trees and all that at the later end of it. So the plants form pioneer organisms, being the world's producers. Number two is that the number of organisms is usually increased from year to year until a climax is reached. So the number of organisms, whether the plant organism or the animal organism, that particular land that is abandoned, the number of organisms there, either plants or animal, begins to increase year by year until a point will reach whereby there will be no increase, there will be no decrease. At that point, you say climax is what is reached. It is already stable already. Number three is that we have diversity of organism species. They increase from year to year. So we have various organisms, different kind of organisms that increase from year to year. Maybe the number of ants that we have last year, it will increase the next year. The number of earthworm we have last year, it will increase the next year. So that is diversity of what organism, the various organisms that you can find in the particular land that is what abandoned. They increase from what year to year. And number four is that succession is orderly and progressive, starting with microscopic green plants and ending with big trees. So succession must be in an orderly form and in a progressive form. So the first stage is starting with a microscopic green plant, and at the latter stage it ends with what big trees. So remember that land we talk about, the abandoned land. Just picture it in your mind. If you leave a place for too long, nobody's going there. You first of all see some plants growing there. At the end of the day, if you come back after for some, let's say leave for like 4 years or 5 years or 6 years, the time will come that place will become like a mini forest filled with trees, shrubs, and other vegetation, and some other animals will be found there. Okay, but this thing takes process. It takes steps. It takes an orderly form before it could get to that particular stage. Number five, each generation of a species alter the habitat by making more soil, and when they die, the soil become more fertile. This is true. Is that when those plants that first of all starts the ecological succession, like that number one, when those plants grow, they die. Their body part is used as what fertilizer, and thereby making the soil fertile and also increasing the soil. So the new ones that will grow on the land will make use of the fertilizers of the first set of plants that were dead, and will use that fertilizer to grow, and thereby, due to pressure and some processes, that land will then be having more soil, and the soil becomes more fertile because the land is not disturbed, it's just abandoned. So the time it comes, the land will be so fertile that crops begin to grow or plants begin to grow due to the death of the first set of plants that grew on that abandoned piece of land. Number six is that there's competition among organisms, in that the various species present compete for the available resources such as carbon dioxide, oxygen, light, and space. And the plants that are more able to compete displace the other, which is true. There'll be competition in that particular land that is abandoned. The stronger ones, since there's enough, the stronger ones will be able to overpower the weaker ones. All right, since their nutrients includes water, carbon dioxide, and lights and oxygen and space, there will be serious competition. So the stronger ones will replace the weaker ones. Number seven is that there will be changes in species composition as the fittest survive the unfit. So the fittest must survive the unfit. Those ones that that are not able to cope, they'll be replaced by the one that is fitted due to this competition that is going on. So plants usually compete for space, water, oxygen, lights, and carbon dioxide. So only the strongest plants will be able to survive. We call them the fittest. While the ones that are not able to survive, they are called the unfit. So the fittest survive the unfit, and these are the characteristics of a what general. These are the characteristics of a what ecological succession, and this happen over the years. It doesn't just happen overnight. It might take years before we can accomplish or get a complete or stable climax community. Let's look at types of succession. Now, there are two types of succession. First, we have primary succession. We have the secondary succession. Let's talk about the primary succession. And this is a type of succession that begins from bare ground or bare rock or body of water. So first of all, we have the bare ground, as you can see. The bare can be bare rock or bare ground. Now, when you leave that rock for some time, you begin to see those. For example, now you have those fences that you have, those walls that you have. First of all, it's just a bare wall, but after some time, you see some things growing on the wall. This is how it begins. Those organisms that is growing on the wall, they are called. That stage is called primary what succession. So this type of succession begins from bare ground that has not experienced vegetation before. It can be bare rock, or it can happen at the body of water. Now, it usually starts with lower organisms, and it takes a longer time to reach a climax community. So as you can see, the bare rock, once the rock is left bare, lichen and mosses begin to grow on it, and lichen and mosses are replaced by grass and herbs. Grass and herbs are replaced by shrubs and bushes. They are also replaced by young trees and pines. Then we have mature trees like oaks. This is how succession takes place. So it's a gradual process. But if it's starting from just a bare ground, bare rock, or body of water, it's known as primary what succession. And examples there can be found in the ponds. You can find them vegetation. You can find them some of them as vegetation on rocks. You can find them as mangrove forests or estuarine. Estuarine is the point whereby you have the fresh water and the salt water meeting at the point. So you can have such primary succession in such areas like that. Let's move on to the next one. Let's look at secondary succession. What's the difference between the primary and secondary? Now, secondary succession, this is a type of succession that starts on already colonized surface. This is a type of succession that starts on already colonized surface. What do we mean? It starts with fairly complex organisms and takes shorter time to reach a climax community. Examples of secondary succession we have the abandoned farmland and grassland. So when we say secondary succession, it starts from a place that is already having plants before. All right, so that place is not just a bare ground. It used to have, maybe that land used to have plants before, but due to maybe disaster like maybe like bush burning, or there was flood, or there was chaos, or there was drought. And once plants begin to grow, that plants, they are not the pioneer. Those plants are secondary. They start the secondary word section because they are not they were other plants before they came. It's just that land was having some issues. Maybe it was faced with fire, or maybe by man's action, or maybe it's faced by flood or something. So any plant that grows there is starting what we call secondary succession. Why? Because that place used to be covered with what vegetation before. So it's not starting it at all. So it's a type of succession that starts on already colonized surface. So for example, let's say we have a farmland, abandoned farmland. Now farmland is already used for farming. Let's say a farmer has a farmland and is using that land for farming for a long time, and decides to abandon that land, clear the land, and he left the land alone. Now any plants that grows there, they're going to begin the secondary succession. Why? Because that farmland was used for farming. So plants have been growing on that farmland. So any other plants that will grow on that particular farmland after being abandoned, they're going to start with what secondary succession. And most of the time, it usually starts with what fairly complex organism. All right. And take note, it takes shorter time to reach climax, which means before that farmland can get, it takes a short time for that place become a complete bush or it's being filled with what vegetation. It takes a shorter time for it to attain climax community. Let's move on. Let's look at the difference between the primary and the secondary subsection. Now, the primary subsection here, as you can see, it starts on a bare surface, can be rock, can be pond, can be bare ground. While secondary subsection starts on already colonized surface, which means a surface that has plants before. Number two, on that primary section, that it takes time to reach a climax community. All right. But for secondary subsection, it takes a shorter time to reach a climax community. For primary subsection, it starts with lower organisms like algae, the mosses, and so on and so forth. But for secondary subsection, it starts with fairly complex organisms like grass and that, all that. So let's move on to the next slide. What is the outcome of subsection? Let's talk about the outcome, or what are the results of subsection. Number one, there is replacement by what? Complex organisms. So the initial organism that starts the subsection, which are the simple organisms, or we call them the colonizers, they are replaced by complex organism. Number two, change in the physical environment. And there's changes in the physical environment, there's changes in the structural part of the soil, there's changes in species, and there's also changes in the what activities of the what community, because as more plants are growing there will be physical changes that you can see that there's more bushes and more that you see that there'll be different kind of species that will be moving into that place. So there'll become a physical change in the what environment, from being a bar ground into a place covered by what vegetation. Number three, we have replacement replacement. Now, how does this happen? Now, as some species like plants, as some species makes condition favorable for others, they in turn they create unfavorable condition for themselves, thereby increasing the process of what replacement. So those first plants that we said that are the pioneer or colonizers, they make conditions to be unfavorable for themselves, and they make conditions to be what favorable for others that are coming. So since they are weak, they can't be able to withstand most of the pressure of the environment, they die. So that death will be in favor of any plants that is going to grow on that particular land. So that death will add manure and fertilizer to the soil. So any plant that grows on there will be favored by their death, which has now become a manure to them. So there'll be fast replacement. Number four, attainment of equilibrium point. Number five, we have is climax community as the final stage. So one of the outcomes is that at the end of it, we're going to have what we call the climax community as the final stage, which is the peak of all ecological subsection. Let's look at the next one we have here. Let's look at factors that can lead to barren land. When we say barren land, it means bare land that has no vegetation or has no plant on it. What are things that can lead to barren land? So here we have erosion. Erosion is one of it that can lead to barren land, which is the washing away of the topsoil. And once the topsoil is washed away, plants will not be able to get nutrients to grow. So therefore, it will lead to what we call barren land. Number two is volcanic eruption. Now the heat from the molten magma, which you can see right here, once it's spilled out, it destroys everything on its path. So once this thing spills out of the mountain and flows down, it destroys every crops on its path, thereby leaving that land to become barren land. Factors that can affect or that leads to barren land is landslide. As you can see, it's when a portion of the land, all right, is repositioned from where it usually stays. So as you can see from the picture, this is an example of a what of landslide, and these effects can destroy plants that are already inhabiting the place. So this can lead to barren land. Next we have is a earthquake. And the earthquake is a natural disaster that makes the ground to cave in. So if there are plants right in this spot here, such plants will be destroyed. So earthquake can lead to barren land. Next we have here is next we have here is drought. Now when there is drought, what is drought? Drought simply means when the land does not experience rainfall for a long time. It means lack of water. When there's no rainfall for a long time, it can lead to what? To drought. Then the last factor that can lead to barren land is mining. And this has to do with the activities of men looking for minerals under the soil. By looking for minerals under the soil, some use explosives and some dangerous chemicals. And these chemicals in turn may destroy the crops on the land and leave the land to become barren, as you can see from the pictures. We also have hurricane. The hurricane is also a natural disaster that can lead to barren land. Once it sweeps across a farm or sweep across the land, it destroys everything that comes into its path. Right? So the hurricane, once it leaves, it usually happens in the water. So once it packs the sea into the land, they destroy everything on the land to overflood the land and make that land to become barren land. Then we have the tornado. Tornado is also there. Tornado is also a natural disaster that sweeps and destroys everything that comes on its path. All right, these are factors that can lead to barren land. Now let's look at the major community we have in ecological succession. We're looking at the plant succession. All right, look at the major community in plant succession. The first community we have there is the pioneer, or we call them the what? Early colonizers. These are the first group of plants in the what? Into the section. So the first group of plants that actually grow on that bar land, they are called pioneer. We call them what? Early what? Colonizers. The first set of plant that grows on that bar land. So we refer to as what? Pioneers or early colonizers. Now let's look at their structure. They are small, they are power plants, and they have high drought resistance. They require minimum space and nutrients. Examples we have is the liverworts, algae, lichen, and mosses. So you can see the liverworts right here, and this is the mosses protruding out of the ground. So these are examples of pioneers or early colonizers. Let's look at another community again let's look at another section under the plant community. We have the intermediate developments section. Now, what are they? They are groups of communities that replaces the earlier or the early colonizers. So the ones the early colonizers are dead, the next one that comes up, we call them the intermediate or we call them what? The development what? Section. Intermediates, or we call them development section. Examples are the herbivorous plants such as the Talonym agratum, we have the Impareta cylindrica, we have the Cayonatus, and we have the Cedar acuta. So this picture you are seeing here is the Talonym agratum. Next community we have there is the climax community. Now this is the community that is the most complex in the plants community. This is the full stage, the final stage or the stable stage of ecological succession in plants. So this is a community that is the most complex. It has bigger life forms such as trees and shrubs. So when you start seeing trees and shrubs, bushes, tall trees in that particular land that is abandoned, we'll say that is a climax community. That's a stable community. All right, let's look at the next topic we have there is overcrowding. Overcrowding. Now, overcrowding, what is overcrowding? I believe everybody should know overcrowding. This is a situation when there is an increase in the population. Take note here, in the population of a particular species beyond the carrying capacity of the particular land. I take it again. This is a situation when there is an increase in the, take note, in the, let me change my pen to blue. All right, in the population of a particular species that can be plants, can be animal. beyond the carrying capacity of the particular land. It means when the population is more than the carrying capacity of a particular land, that is referred to as what? Overcrowding. When the population is beyond the carrying capacity, the land cannot carry them again. That is what we refer to as what? Overcrowding. For example, if you have a class that can accommodate 10 students, and one way or the other we have 20 students there, we can say that class is what? Is overcrowded. Such class is what? Overcrowded. So when you have more organisms than this number of space of land that is left, it's referred to as overcrowding. Let's look at the next one we have there. Let's look at population. What is population? This is defined as the total number of organisms of the same species inhabiting a particular land or habitat at a particular time. I take it again. This is defined as the total number of organisms of the same species inhabiting or living in a particular area or habitat at a particular time. Then we have what we call population density. This is the number of individual organisms per unit area or volume of the habitat. Take note of the habitats that is there. So population density is the number of individual organisms per unit area or volume of the habitat. Okay, and there's a mathematical expression for this, which is given as total population. If you know the total population, if you know the area of the habitat, which is the area of the space of the land, to get population density is total population divided by area of the habitat. So it's just the number of individual organisms per unit area. How many space a particular organism is covering on a particular land. That is what we refer to as what? Population density. Let's look at factors that can lead to overcrowding. Number one, we have increase in birth rates, which is also known as mortality. We also have increase in food. When there's enough food, trust me, the population will increase. Decrease in death rates. Immigration is that when organisms move from one spot and moving to another place. That is immigration. Number five, lack of dispersal of seeds and fruits. When some plants refuse to, or when some plants does not disperse their seeds and fruits, that plant community will be what? Overcrowded. So lack of dispersal of seed and fruits can lead to overcrowding. Then absence of predators. These are organisms that feed on other organisms. So when there's no predator, it can lead to what? Overcrowding. Just imagine, or let's assume, for example, um, a crowd of rats, and there's no cats to feed on them, or there's no other animals to feed on them. You see that if you take away all the enemies of rats away, which is cats, snake, and human, if they are left alone, they will lead to what we call overcrowding. There'll be so much rats in the habitats there. So overcrowding, the absence of predator can also lead to overcrowding. Let's look at the effects of overcrowding. What happens when there's overcrowding? What are the effects? Number one, there'll be competition due to limited food and resources. Since there are too much, the food and resources will not be enough, so it will lead to what? Competition. It can lead to spread of diseases. Then, if the competition is severe, it can lead to what we call cannibalism, whereby they begin to feed on themselves, begin to eat themselves. That's cannibalism. They begin to eat their kind. Then it can also lead to the what? Death of what? Organisms. If the organism cannot compete or survive, it can lead to their what? To their death. Let's look at adaptations to avoid overcrowding. What are the adaptations that animals you know, can use to avoid overcrowding? Number one is dispersal of seeds. One way plants usually use to avoid overcrowding is that they disperse their seeds. They spread their seeds so that those seeds will go and form new community somewhere else, thereby reducing the population in that particular community through dispersal of seeds. Number two is territorial behavior. Some animals protect their territory. They don't want any other of their kind to come in. For example, we have the lion. All right. Territorial behavior is what from the word territories. The territories are resting areas which animals carve out for themselves, and they are usually possessive of these areas. They can fight for the areas, they can defend their territories against any intruder or other members of the same species. So by doing this, it can reduce population. It can reduce population. And some animals that exhibit this territorial behavior include lizards, birds, lion, and so on and so forth. Number three is emigration. This is a movement of individuals or animals out of their locality to another place for settlement in a new habitat. So it's just the outward movement of animals from their locality to another place for settlement in a new habitat. Examples of organisms that perform this is we have some birds, we have the buffaloes, they move out to places to resettle. And even human beings also carry out emigration too. Number four is swarming. Swarming. As you can see the picture, we can see some group of flies swarming around some piece of food right there. Now swarming of certain social animals such as termites and bees occurs when some members of an old economy or old colony separate and fly out to establish a new colony. That's what we refer to as what swarming. For example, when we have group of bees staying together, so that's their hive is too tight or too small for them. Some of the bees they fly out from the old colony and separate themselves and go and establish a new colony, thereby reducing the population of that old colony. Number six is production of chemicals by plants. Now, the production of chemicals by plants, talking about the roots of plants. Some plants roots, produces chemicals, all right, and prevents the growth of other plants that is close to them. So by doing so, this prevents overcrowding. Some plants, their roots, they produce chemicals which affects other plants that is close to them to prevent them from growing. So that prevention can lead, is a way of what preventing what overcrowding. This device is used to prevent overcrowding. All right, these are the ways, or these are the adaptations that plants and animals, all right, adopt to avoid overcrowding. Let's look at the next one. Let's look at food shortage. So looking at food shortage, and we've done this before. So food shortage is a situation that occurs when the supply of food is not enough for a given population in a given area. It means when the food is lesser than the number of population that we have. That's what we refer to as what food shortage. So there's food shortage. It may cause some effects or have some effects on the population. Let's move on to the next slide. Let's look at what can cause food shortage. Number one is natural disaster like flood, droughts, as you can see. Number two is disease of plants and animals. Number three is pests such as locusts, grasshopper, weevils. Number four is lack of inadequate storage facilities for storing food that are produced. This can lead to food shortage. Number five is bush burning, which destroys soil organisms and reduces soil fertility and exposes the soil to erosion. Of course, we have overpopulation can also lead to food shortage, and also war can also lead to food shortage. All these are points and many more that can lead to what that causes food shortage. Let's look at the effects of food shortage. What is the effect of food shortage on the population? When there's lack of food, what happens? Number one, there'll be competition among either plants, either animals. So there'll be competition among the organisms. And number two, some organisms they will perform what called emigration. Now, migration is the outward movement of animals from their local environments. As you can see, the wildebeest, they usually migrate from where they are to look for a better pasture. So emigration can, food shortage can lead to what? Emigration, just to go and look for food at a better place. Number three is decrease in the rate of reproduction. So one way to decrease in the rate of reproduction. So if there's food shortage, the organism will not be able to perform well, and it can affect the system of the organism, which also affects reproduction. of the particular organism. Number 4 is increase in death rate. Increase in death rate. So organisms that are not powerful enough, that are not fit enough, they can begin to die due to what? Food shortage. So when the food shortage is lasts for so long, organisms begin to die, and that is the cause or effects of what? Food shortage. These are all and many more that can cause that are the effects of what? Food shortage. All right, we've come to the end of this class. We'll talk about the ecological section, talk about the types, look at overcrowding, and look at food shortage. Here we have questions for you that is right here. Number 1, what is food shortage? Outline 4 factors that causes food shortage. State 3 causes of food shortage. State 2 outcomes of succession. Number 5, discuss 5 adaptive features of organisms used to survive overcrowding. And next we have is what is ecological succession. Write short notes on primary succession. Write differentiate between primary and secondary succession. Number 4, define stable community. And number 5, states the outcome of succession. You can state at least 4 outcomes of succession. All right, I think we've come to the end of the class for today. Please, you can rewind this video, forward it, you take it back to get the notes. So answer the questions and see you in the next class. God bless you. Do have a nice day. Bye.